What if I told you that Hamilton's sixth position in the Singapore classification is not what it seems? What if it really was the first great sign that something very serious is about to change in Ferrari and in Formula One? The return that marked in Q1 was, in the words of the Maranello engineers themselves, one of the cleanest and most precise ones that the SF25 had registered so far. It wasn't just a fast time. It was a testimony. That one, 29,525, not only put it on the provisional top. He revealed that, for the first time in the whole season, Ferrari's car could perform to a competitive level if it was specifically configured. It was as if Hamilton had turned a key that nobody knew it existed. And with that return, with that perfect moment of connection between the pilot and the machine, the internal perception of the equipment completely changed. The most striking of all this is that no one celebrated it. Neither he, nor his engineer, nor the media. It was a secret kept on the surface of a timetable. Because true meaning was not in sixth place at the end of the classification. I was in how it came there. How, during that Q1, a car that had been unstable, nervous, and erratic in slow curves throughout the season, suddenly showed noble, controlled, and efficient behavior. Sometimes, the most important thing is not how a session ends, but what it reveals during the way. And on that journey from Q1 to Q3, what Hamilton revealed was more than rhythm. He revealed understanding. He revealed progress. And above all, he revealed that his adaptation to SF25 was much more advanced than everyone even inside the paddock believed. The real turning point on Singapore's weekend was not a return, not even a position in the table. It was a choice. A technical decision, risky but perfectly calculated, which made Lewis Hamilton, for the first time since he signed with Ferrari, cease to be a passenger in the SF25 and became its architect. While many within the team continued to bet on traditional configurations, based on maximizing speed in line, Hamilton did something different. He chose to sacrifice power in rapid areas in exchange for much more balanced behavior in curve. He opted for a configuration with a significantly higher rear aerodynamic load, at the cost of losing between 5 and 6 km per hour in tip speed. And if there is a place where that seems a technical suicide, it is in an urban circuit like Marina Bay, where each meter of line can be decisive. But what Hamilton did was anything but impulsive. Actually, it was the result of a deep analysis of the deficiencies of the car. Until that time, the SF25 was unpredictable. It reacted erratically when the track conditions changed, especially in slow curves, where the rear axle simply did not offer the necessary support to generate confidence at the wheel. And in Formula One, without trust, there is no time. There is no performance. With that new configuration, the car changed. Not only on paper, but in its real behavior. Telemetry confirmed it. The slow curves that previously represented the Ferrari Achilles heel were now their strong point. Hamilton traced surgical cleaning, with a consistency that had not been seen in the Italian car throughout the season. And the most impressive, it was not a perfect lap. It was a car that finally worked with him instead of him. This left engineers perplexed. 4 months, Ferrari had been working to solve the problems of SF25 from a global aerodynamic perspective, trying to apply compromise solutions. But Hamilton changed that mentality. His approach was surgical, specific to his driving style. What he discovered was not just an improvement for the car. It was a completely new direction for its development. At that time, within Ferrari's garage, conversations changed tone. There was no longer talk of adjusting the car to survive the classification. There was talk of how to replicate what Hamilton had felt in that Q1. Because what I had found was not just a winning setup. It was an open door to a new interpretation of SF25. An operational window that until then had been closed, and that now opened thanks to a technical decision made against the current. The impact of that decision is not limited to the weekend of Singapore. Mark a precedent. It marks the beginning of a narrative where Hamilton's talent and experience become a catalyst to reconfigure Ferrari's DNA. Because when a pilot of his caliber finds that connection with his car, which follows, he is usually devastating for his rivals. And this is where the perception begins to change. Because it's no longer about whether Hamilton can adapt to Ferrari. The real question is whether Ferrari can follow Hamilton's adaptation rhythm. And what began as a setup experiment can be remembered later as the exact moment in which the SF25 ceased to be a failed project and began to become a winning car. The story seemed perfect. The symbiosis between Hamilton and the SF25 began to materialize. Ferrari had finally found signs of clear direction, and the return of Q1 had been a lighthouse in the middle of the dark. But, as usually happens in Formula One, even the best discoveries can become fragile before a silent and constant enemy: thermal inconsistency. As the classification advanced from Q2 to Q3, the track was changing. What seemed like a positive evolution in terms of grip and stability soon revealed a new layer of difficulty. The asphalt began to heat up, the rear tires accumulated temperature faster than expected, and what was a balanced car began to transform into something completely different. The problem was there, in the very structure of the SF25. Its performance operating window was so narrow, so delicately calibrated, that any minimum thermal deviation was sufficient to crumble everything constructed. This is not a common defect. It is a structural weakness. Ferrari's sensitivity to thermal variations, especially on the rear axle, was something that the team had been trying to handle from the pre-season. But even Singapore he had not manifested so clearly. The data showed that between the preparation return and the quick return in Q3, the temperature of Hamilton's rear tires shot more than 3 degrees Celsius. A seemingly harmless figure for the casual fan, but lethal in the technical context. That slight variation was enough to alter the traction, break the consistency in the slow output curves, and return the car to an erratic state. From the steering wheel, Hamilton felt everything. The thrust won in Q1 disappeared in seconds. It entered the curves with the same precision, with the same determination, but the car no longer responded in the same way. The rear began to float, to lose support just when I needed it most. And in a circuit like Marina Bay, where each curve is a traction exam, the price was very high. But beyond the result, that 6th position on the grill, the really important thing was what revealed this collapse. Because SF25 problems are not limited to pure performance, but to the impossibility of maintaining that stable performance for more than one classification phase. This is a capital technical challenge. Pirelli 2025 tires, with their new thermal tolerances, require a perfect balance between temperature, pressure, aerodynamic load, and weight distribution. And Ferrari, until now, has failed to put all those variables consistently. What Hamilton and his technical team learned that day was painful, but valuable. They discovered the real potential of the car, yes. But they also understood that this potential can only be released under extremely specific conditions. It's like having a golden chest, but with a lock that changes every time you try to open it. And this is where the true question appears that will mark Ferrari's immediate future. Can they turn that ideal configuration into a repeatable standard? Or will this adaptation to the Hamilton a timely miracle, destined to evaporate every time the weather, the track, or the gums behave differently? Modern Formula One does not only reward the rapids, reward the constants. And while Hamilton showed that the SF25 has a high roof when everything fits, he also exposed that this roof is sustained by a structure that is not yet robust enough. But even in that fragility there is hope. Because Hamilton's work was not in vain. He put Ferrari on a new development route. One that no longer looks for generic solutions but personalized paths. Marina Bay's performance, with her high and low, was not a disappointment. It was a map. One complex, yes, but now has a starting point. And that, in a sport where thousands define races, can be the difference between another season of frustrations and unexpected redemption. The classification of the Singapore Grand Prix was not simply one more episode in the season. It was an incomplete but revealing photograph. A frozen moment in which he was much more than a simple 6th position. What many saw as a disappointing result was actually a silent statement of intentions. Because what Hamilton did that Saturday night in Marina Bay was not to compete. It was discovering. And in Formula One, discover something new, something deep about your car, about yourself as a pilot, or about the way both can be complemented. It is worth a lot more than a grid position. It is worth entire seasons. Veil future titles. Lewis Hamilton showed that the performance of the SF25 was not a mirage. He showed that, despite criticism, media pressure, and skepticism that has surrounded him since his signing was announced by Ferrari, he still has the capacity, and perhaps now more than ever, the motivation to change the narrative completely. He found a configuration that finally unlocked the car. He identified the keys to a balance that Ferrari had sought for months without success. And he did it on a complex, technical track, in one of the most demanding scenarios of the calendar. But that discovered truth was accompanied by another, the structural fragility of the Italian car. Because understanding the car is just half of the challenge. Converting that understanding into a consistent, reproducible tool is where the championship is really played. And that is where Ferrari, despite the progress, is still indebted. Erratic behavior when the temperature changes, the extreme dependence of a lowercase operational window, the difficulty in maintaining return after return, are ghosts that must still exorcise. What Hamilton found in Singapore was not just speed. It was purpose. It was a roadmap. And if Ferrari has the intelligence of following it, It will not be remembered as another classification, but as the moment the real change began.